Just a few comments about SciNet. SciNet began basically in 2008 with what was at that time a massive investment by CFI and the province of Ontario and the University of Toronto in the development of a high-performance computing capability for this province. It's still the most powerful capability that we have in this country. A very long time after the initial investment was made, which was intended to be about $50 billion over 5 years. Well, we're now 8 years on, going on 9. But I'm very glad to announce that by the end of this year, we will be able to install what will again be the most powerful academically situated computer facility in this country. And it's, I think, an enormous accomplishment of the collectivity of people who've been involved in this enterprise that we've been able to accomplish this. It's never, of course, as much as we want or as much as we need, but it's a major new step along the way. So what we're going to do next is to show you a little bit of the capabilities of this wall, which looks a little blank, at the moment, but we're going to try to have it come to life. And so I'm going to ask first Ramses van Zon, who is one of the analysts in the SciNet group, of whom there are roughly 5, complementing the group of roughly 5 computer operators, right, who belong to the SciNet team. So Ramses is going to give us a demonstration of the beauty of the wall, okay, basically by animating the complete set of software capabilities, right, that we mount on the current SciNet machines. So Ramses, would you show us our exploding animation?
Thank you, Dick. Yeah, so as usual, everything can be working perfectly, but then your screensaver kicks in. All right, we're back. So I'm one of the analysts here, which means I'm involved in user support, a lot of the training. We do a lot of education here, but also in installing some of the software. And this last bit, the software, gives me an opportunity to sort of show off what this visualization wall can really do. So I'm going to show you a graph. It's going to be a little bit fun, okay? It's going to be loose. So here's a graph, and the graph consists of points, and each point here is a software package on our general purpose cluster. So the general purpose cluster is the cluster that we use most. It has about 30,000 cores. And so there's different points here. There's white points and yellow points. And the white points are true modules. We call them modules as software packages. And the yellow points are sort of categories. So I have the category of compilers. I have a category of different kinds of software. And the reason I have to have those is that, as was mentioned, we have 800 active users. And so they need all kinds of software, and not all that software works together very nicely. Some of it conflicts, and some of it works together or needs other packages. And so this is what this graph represents. It represents how, so the green lines, for instance, are packages that need each other. They need to be together. Whereas red lines or orange lines, which are a little harder to see, are packages that can't be loaded together. So we ask of our users to be very specific in what software they want before they can even get to start. This is why we give intros to how they use the system, etc. So this is supposed to visualize in a kind of random way what these nodes look like. And the reason that this is a demonstration of the visual is that, okay, you can kind of see it's a mess. I'll clean it up in a second, but it's kind of a mess. But although it's a mess, if I had this on my computer screen, and I have it right here, I don't know, maybe the really, really young people in the audience can read what's on this screen, but I can't. So I'm kind of happy that I can go, oh, this is Octave. Well, that was just what I was looking for. This is a graph visualization package that is kind of nice. You can go on different points, and you can see what depends on what. but it can also rearrange it for you a little bit. Let me see what we can do if we rearrange this a little bit. So all it did is try to figure out from all these connections what kind of belongs together. And now we get a much better insight, but it just puts things together. So yeah, some things are a little bit fine. But I can see a patch here of Intel MPI, that is one of our libraries. You can see a semicolon, which is obviously a parsing error. That doesn't really exist. So you can even find errors in your module system doing this. Now, it's lying a little bit. This is not all of the software that we have on our system. This is the software we had in 2011, when we had just switched from one operating system to another, and we had just installed all of the necessary modules. It would be great if this is all that we had to maintain as our 4 or 5 analysts. Let me see what happened like a year later. This is what we installed. And you can see the dependencies are growing too. Remember, these blue lines are things that depend on each other. And then the red lines aren't as clear, but they grow as well. Go a year further. I can grab this thing. Right there. This is a few years back, and then this is everything. Now, this is a big mess again. It was nice and ordered, and things just got more and more disordered. And so I can run this algorithm that tries to figure out what belongs together once more. See if I can make this a tiny, bit more sensitive. Now, what this shows, just by inspection, is that there's a lot of modules that kind of depend together or depend on one another. And then there's a few that they're sort of one-offs. They're standalone applications that run just fine. That's good, but if we focus on this center part, okay, oh, there it is. And this is why it's important to do this interactively. You could give this to a program to visualize, and this is what you would get. But now you see, okay, this is not right. I need to adjust the font. So obviously there's a way to do that. And maybe I want to have the size of things a little bit better. And maybe I want to tweak some parameters. But the real point here is not what parameters I want to tweak for this. So it's quite nice. But the fact that I can use this wall in a way that I could do this on my computer, but as I said, I wouldn't see the label, so I would have to sort of stop it and hope that things are working. They can go on different sites. Here's my Intel compiler. Intel is one of our main compilers just because we have Intel chips. That's the only reason. I'm not making a plug here. But it means a lot of our modules require that particular module. And so you can sort of investigate that. You can zoom out a little bit and say, okay, I see some other clusters. What's this thing over here? Well, let's figure it out. Well, those are the Java-related applications. We don't have a lot of them. That happens to be not a very high-performance package, but that's okay. So this is kind of all I wanted to show. But as I said, you could do this behind your computer. You could download this. You could get the data. By the way, the data is about 12,000 lines of raw data, something that you would never see these patterns in yourself. But with a wall like this, you could be standing here with a whole research group of 10, 12 people, and all be staring at different parts at the same time. It's kind of nice. So this room, which we mostly use for our teaching, is also very, very suitable for collaboration and for graphic and interactive visualization.
Thank you very much, Ramses. So Marcello Ponce will now step up to the wall. Not the firing squad, but just to the wall. Marcello is a theoretical astrophysicist, and he's going to show us some animations of neutron stars and black holes. I hope you'll be excited.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, let's see how this. Okay, so Ramsey showed us the inside part of SciNet, how the algorithms, how the codes are organized inside. So what I want to try to show you today is, as scientists, how we can produce data and how we can actually make sense of the data by visualizing it. And having the video wall is actually a nice tool to do that. Moving. So this is not going to be as interactive as Francis was showing, but it's going to try to show different cases of studies that we do here at SciNet. As Professor Peltier mentioned, my research field is computational astrophysics. So in a nutshell, computational astrophysics is take your favorite astrophysical object, let's say a black hole, a neutron star, try to model it with very quite complicated mathematical equations, put that into a code in a computer, run it for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, not stop, using 200, 400 cores of the cluster. And then what you get at the end, if you're lucky enough, your code doesn't crash or produce any infinites, is something like this. So this is what is left of a neutron star interacting with a black hole. What you see there, this kind of blob or cloud is what is the form at the end of the neutron star. Let's see if I have taken different pictures, different angles of what is the remnant. Unfortunately, I cannot show you a movie of this because it's a quite demanding simulation, and it has more than 1 million particles representing what is there. But you can see, for instance, the different colors which represent different densities in the cloud, in what is left of the material of the neutron star. You can see also vectors, arrows there, which represents the velocity of the material that remains unbound to the black hole. And also you can see something called isosurfaces, which is this kind of transparency thing, are surfaces that has the same density within the remnant of the neutron star. One thing that is nice from this visualization is what this project showed for the first time is when you have unbound material far away from the black hole, you can see all the arrows are kind of parallel and the same magnitude. So it represents a sort of uniform and homogeneous flow. So this is one example. The other example I want to show you is a black hole that produces some interesting effects in what we call a disk. So we know that black hole exists in the center of the galaxies. We know that galaxies merge because we have observed that with the Hubble Space Telescope, for instance. So what happened with these when two galaxies merge is the black holes merge as well. And what may happen there is that the remnant black hole, the object that remains after the merger, may have a recoil, may have an extra field velocity there. It's called a gravitational recoil, or for short, a kick. Basically, we say that the black hole has been kicked. And something that is funny from the simulations is that this effect was first noticed while doing simulations, while doing numerical simulations. And then astrophysics or astronomers point out their telescopes, and they figured out that that was happening in nature. But it was first observed in simulations. So what you are going to see here is this gravitational recoil of a black hole surrounded by an accretion disk. And think of an accretion disk as just dust, as the Saturn rings, for instance, that's just composed of dust, which is surrounding the black hole. So there are different panels here. These are different angles of view, and there are different kicks. So we change the inclination angle with what the black hole is kicked from the galaxy, if you wish. And again, what you can see here is the different colors which represent different densities. You will see a zoom in of that region, and you will see how there are regions inside or close to the black hole that are very quickly depleted of material. Which means that there is a gap in the density. So this is a lot of important information for astrophysicists. Now, I mentioned computational astrophysics is about taking your favorite object as a neutron star, for instance. That's what we are seeing here. And let me point out, this is just artistic rendering or artistic conception of a neutron star. So you can see magnetic fields, which are the things in orange. So basically, neutron stars are nice because they are composed by neutrons, and they can produce magnetic fields. And what happened also is that if there are electric particles surrounding the neutron star, these magnetic fields accelerate the particles and produce these kind of sheds. energetic sheds that we can actually observe with radio telescopes. So what we have done as well is take these objects that we know very well how to simulate, how they behave, and put them together. So what you're going to see next is a couple of simulations where we take different configurations of 2 neutron stars with different inclination angles for the magnetic fields and see what comes after. So this rendering should shortly be done, I think. There we go. And you will see, so this, it looks a bit messy than compared to the previous one, but what you have to take into account is that these are actually the solutions, the numerical solutions to the equations where we model the neutron star, where we model the magnetic fields, where we see how the magnetic fields interact with each other. So this is a full numerical relativity simulation, taking account Einstein's theory of relativity, but also on top of that, the electromagnetism. One of the nice things of this last simulation, you see a burst, which is initial data, so don't ask about that, or ask me later if you wish. These orange regions are regions that we call current sheets. It's where there should be some currents and creation of particles or electric charges to compensate for the issue that we cannot have monopoles in nature. So these turn out to be very important regions because then we have an imprint of the signature of the merger of these neutron stars, and actually astronomers can observe this. So again, this is kind of nice to have the visualization to, as Francis was mentioning before, to collaborate with your colleagues to discuss these kind of results, to see if actually we did a good job or not, and to try to understand what is going on behind the scenes. You will notice that these movies, as well as other movies, are going to be played around, so you should walk around the installation. So feel free to ask me if you have any questions, and thank you very much for being here.
So thanks, Dick, and thanks, Ramses and Marcelo, for those wonderful presentations. You've really given us an opportunity to understand what the power of the wall here is, both as a research tool and as a teaching tool.